Welcome, fam. We are starting a new series on nutrition and, more importantly, understanding nutrition and demystifying some of the myths that we hear and helping us understand where to place new information when it comes from these experts that do research and come up with new findings. Because the truth that no one really talks about is that everything that we need to know about nutrition has already been established. Everything else tends to be noise. And we need to understand where to place new information and provide context around the new information that we find or we hear. And one of the most important things that we need to be able to do is understanding how to track our nutrition to know if we're on the right path or if we're on the wrong path. Because a lot of people haven't been taught or haven't been shown how to actually track their nutrition or how to actually reach their nutrition goals. It's not that difficult. You just haven't been taught or you just haven't been shown practically. Like, how does that look when we talk about tracking our nutrition? Because it's way simpler than people actually like to believe. It's way simpler. And with some of the technology that we have today, it takes you probably less than 5 minutes to do. The first thing that we need to understand about nutrition is the term calories, because that term usually confuses a lot of people. They don't understand what it means. If you don't track your calories, you're not going to hit your goal. People are like, what is this calories thing? And before we even give calories a name, what it is, we just need to understand the principles behind calories. And the principle is that when God designed the world, the sun was set in place and the earth was given to us so that we can have dominion over the earth, so that we would work the land, so that we would eat from the land. Plants, seed bearing trees would give us food to eat and would have dominion over animals. The animals on earth have their responsibilities and purposes. And the same animals that we eat, they eat plants. They get their energy from plants. The sun gives energy to the plants. The plants use that energy and nutrients from the soil, from the ground, from the land, along with water to create nutrients and food for the animals. And for us, we're fortunate that we can eat those plants, the trees, the seeds, and we can also eat the animals. So we can eat that direct energy that's come from the sun, that's in the plants and our veggies. That's why veggies are very good for us, or fruits are very good for us. And we can also eat the animals because the animals are also converting that food that they eat, the plants, the grass, into different nutrients that we would otherwise not get from the plants directly. Because when they digest and eat some of these plants and seeds, they turn that into more nutrients. So they essentially multiply the nutrients that they eat from the plants. Because when you think about protein, for example, the protein found in plants, as humans, we cannot extract or create or multiply that amount of protein in our bodies to satisfy all our needs and all our functions because they're different amino acids, different proteins. So some animals do a better job of digesting the grass, the leaves, and creating protein that human beings can actually eat and use. So that is the fundamental understanding that we need to understand. So it's about us living in harmony with the land and understanding how we're supposed to interact with the animals around us, with the trees, with the vegetation. Those are all important aspects of our human lives that we need to embrace and take care of. That is what God had already intended for us since the beginning. Now, as populations grew over time, we had to build. And by building, we're multiplying because also God told us we need to multiply. I'm talking about God giving you the angle of faith. To understand this, it comes back to the design, the original design, because the blueprint has really been laid out. So when we expand, we find places to live, we're still trying to live in harmony with nature, with what God had intended. And by us expanding, we've also expanded and evolved and started removing some of the natural things that were intended for us. By removing these natural things, we've created new problems because now maybe we've displaced some of the animals into different places and some of the land that we used to have that we could rotate because once we plant, we work the land for a couple of years We need to leave that land that is now barren to rejuvenate itself, rejuvenate the soil, rejuvenate the nutrients. Let the grass grow, let all the different things that are going to happen to that land happen, because rain is going to come, different seasons, animals will die in that land, decay happens. That's like manure, that's compost, that's happening. The nutrients are going back into the land. The land, after a couple of years, has nutrients again, and it can give us better yield again. So you rotate those lands. That's why you find people back in the day, they wouldn't build permanent structures, but they'll be more nomadic. You'd have them create their own community here. And then after a couple of years, maybe they move to a different community because they're looking for pasture lands, where even if they have their animals, they can move from one area to another area. So they wouldn't find the need to build permanent structures in Africa. That's why they would build huts, things from the land with the mud from the land, and let it all just fall down. They moved to another place. It's not that they didn't want to build cities and stuff, but it didn't make sense. It was not part of the design. When you find natives in North America, they understood this at a fundamental level. But when your population grows, you're forced to start building permanent lands and permanent structures because you can't just move everywhere. It creates new problems. So the development that we have, the new world that we embraced to start building and involve more technology and try and yield more food by using science, by using chemicals, by using genetically modified crops, we've started creating new problems for ourselves because we're like, okay, we're trying to solve one problem by creating another problem. So this history matters to where we are today because we've evolved. We are where we are right now. So we can't really go back into the past. But it's important for us to understand our history from the past because every time we try advance and say that, oh, science is advancing and we're able to do this thing now, or this new research has come out, we're also creating new problems. By solving one problem, we're creating another problem. So it's like a game of ping pong. Boom, boom, boom. So these important things to understand when it comes to science and understanding what God intended, the nature, how we are supposed to interact with nature, how things were already set in motion. But what you find is that as humans, we've always been looking for growth, resources. And by us expanding, we've now settled into countries where some countries have good land where they can farm, there's agriculture, and they don't need to modify food. And some places, they don't have great weather or climate for certain foods. So they either import or they have to engineer their food so that it gives them the same nutrients, the same nutritional value. But it's always going to come at a cost. It's always going to come at a cost by trying to engineer your food because your body has to interact with the engineered food because some of the things are not natural. They're not what God intended. That is not the design that God had for us to begin with. So we need to understand that first. When our bodies now eat this modified food, it's going to create new problems, sickness, disease. And when you look at, let's say, some of the animals I've talked about, pigs and shellfish, when you talk about the sea, these are also scavengers. The animals and the fish that were designed by God to clean the ecosystem, to clean our environments. So some people tend to eat some of these animals and fish. But yes, you can eat them. It's not that you're going to die or it's like a sin, you're not going to go to heaven. But the point is, for our own health, eating things that were not intended for us by God leads us into new problems, different problems that were not intended for us to face to begin with. So that is the fundamental understanding of food, our interaction with food, the relationship we're supposed to have with food, and some of the history. I've kind of skimmed through some of that, but I hope you get the idea of what's happened in the past and what God intends for us. Whether you say it's God that has determined some of these things or it's science, but the principle remains the same. And science also proves this. This is a blueprint that has been existing since the beginning of time. This is the blueprint. When we hear about this new research, new science, always understand, okay, how does this interact with what God intended, with how we're supposed to interact? So now you might be asking, okay, Nate, so what does this have to do with nutrition? What does this have to do with calories. This is very important. You need to pay attention to the next part. Science has done some good things. Now, when we say we're now eating engineered food, we're eating all of these things that we're not supposed to eat, we've had to find ways to solve some of the problems. Because back in the day, people would go out, fishing, hunting, they'll be exercising, they'll be moving around. They're not living in houses and apartments. They had yards, they had so much land that they could run around in and play around in. And they would have different things that they did that required the physical activity. They were not stuck on their phones, laptops, TVs. They were moving. They were always in motion. They would be in communities where they're interacting with other people and getting out, not sitting at a computer or staring at a phone. Things have changed. Now we have to figure out, how do we overcome these new challenges? This is where calories now start to matter, because we've understood that our food that we eat provides us energy, because that energy, we know that it's energy because it comes from the sun. Sun has energy. It is a form of energy. We've understood that through science. And our food has a certain level of energy. If I eat one meal a day, I have a certain level of energy from morning till evening if I'm eating one meal. And maybe there are periods throughout the day, depending on how many hours have passed, where my energy peaks or drops, right? Goes up or drops. So we need to understand the energy that is in food, to understand that food is a form of energy. Because when you understand that food is a form of energy, because anyone can relate. If you don't eat food for a day or two, you feel tired. You feel like you're sleepy. And if you're not intentionally fasting, you might just say, okay, I need to eat. You might start getting angry because you haven't eaten. You don't have energy. You can't tolerate a lot of things that are happening around you because you don't have the mental capacity to process everything, because your energy is low. You're frustrated. You're easily frustrated. When you have food, you start feeling like, oh, okay, I've got energy. I can go there. I can come here. I can talk to this person. I can entertain this conversation. I can tolerate this person who's annoying me. It's easy to do when you're full. You seem happier. You feel happier, right? And once you understand that, this gives you an opportunity, a great opportunity to actually understand how much food you need to eat in a day, or how much food you need to eat to gain weight or lose weight. Because as a principle, the more food you eat, the more energy you eat, the more capacity, the more potential you have to do more things, for you to tolerate more things and do more things, whether it's working longer, whether it's running longer, whether it's working out longer. You have more potential, more capacity when you eat more food. But if you don't eat that food, if you don't use that energy that you've eaten from the food, you will have to put that energy somewhere. There's no two ways about it. Your body has to store that energy because you've taken it in. It's inside you. Your body has to use that energy. If you don't use that energy, the body is going to store that energy as fat. When it stores it as fat, you start gaining weight. And when you gain weight, it might lead to other conditions like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, different things. Because now, remember, the food, the energy that we might be eating might not be the healthiest, because it might be genetically engineered. So it's not that pure source of energy coming from the sun, but it might be the engineered type of energy that your body doesn't really understand. How do I store this extra energy? How do I interact with this engineered food? Because some of that food is missing the most important micronutrients, the micronutrients that support your immune system, that help you fight disease, that help you fight sickness, that might be missing from that genetically engineered food. Are you now seeing the link? If you are saying, okay, I want to lose weight, it also means that you do the opposite. You eat less energy than what your body requires in a day. That is what you do. So you might feel a little bit tired than usual. And that is something that is just normal and part of the process. Now, the important thing to understand is that you have to time the amount of food that you eat when you eat your food, because you want to eat your food when your body requires it the most, when you're interacting with people, or when you need that extra energy. What activities are you doing in a day that require the most energy? So that is when you use that food, that energy from the food, to recover or to prepare you. So you have to time when you eat that food, when you're trying to lose weight. That is the best way to make it as easy as possible to lose weight that you need to. You have to figure out your energy pattern through the day. Because sometimes when you wake up, your body is refreshed, you're recovered from the previous day. You might not need to eat right away. You might be able to do one or two activities until you feel tired. Maybe the first time you eat a meal is lunchtime. Then you can eat a meal, maybe a second meal towards the end of the day. Maybe that is the energy pattern that you have to follow. These are suggestions, but based on your lifestyle, based on what you do, that's what you have to start considering. So, okay, when am I eating this food? Okay, but the question is, the important question, why we're making these videos, because some of this stuff you might have heard already, but it's good to give context to everything that follows. The important thing is now, okay, mate, this sounds great, but how much do I actually need to eat? How much do I actually need to eat? And I'll help you figure that out in a second. Let's look at some of the basics. So this is one of my programs right here. I'm just going to walk you through one of these pages. For me, as a certified nutritionist, I'm here to guide you through the process of tracking your food intake. And this will help you be empowered, informed, and make better decisions to help you reach your fitness goals. So, calories, we have to understand the terms. We have to understand the basics. When we talk about calories, this is now the measure of energy. Like I was saying, there is energy that we're eating in food, and the energy that comes from the sun. But as I was saying, like energy from the sun, like how do you track that? Like you're like, Nate, but okay, it's the energy from the sun. Okay, it comes in plants. It sounds like woo stuff, right? If you don't have a measure to track it, yes, it sounds like woo, like you're trying to guess everything. But what science has helped us do is come up with a standard measure for us to understand calories, to understand that energy, to measure that energy. That is where it counts, because in principle, in concept, everything makes sense. And we now understand it through this standardized measure of calories that we have here. This is the fundamental understanding of nutrition. You need to understand the basics because we've discussed the theory, the overarching concepts around nutrition and the fundamentals around nutrition to give us that history, the context to put nutrition. Now, calories are the measure of energy. So when you consume more calories than you burn, this leads to weight gain, while consuming fewer leads to weight loss. So we've got macronutrients. These are the main components of our food, of our diet. So we've got our proteins, we've got our carbs, carbohydrates, we've got our fats. Proteins, I'm sure everyone knows, they're essential for muscle repair and growth. And these are the amino acids. When you hear someone saying amino acids, these are all proteins. We just say proteins to just cover all the bases. And they're essential for muscle repair and growth. 1 gram of protein is equal to 4 calories. For carbs, this is the primary energy source. 1 gram is also equal to 4 calories. Our fats, these support cell growth, hormones, and they protect our organs. Fats, 1 gram of fats equals to 9 calories. So these 3 are all important. Carbs are not your enemy. Fat is not an enemy. Protein is not an enemy. They're all important. If you try remove one of these, your body will always try compensate because all of these functions are important for your body. They're important for your health. So if you try eliminate one or restrict one too much, your body is always going to try compensate because it still needs to meet those demands for your body. And then micronutrients, we talked about that. That's essential vitamins and minerals. They're required in small amounts, but they're very important for immune function, your blood to circulate, your circulatory system, blood circulation, important. The composition of your blood, very important. Respiratory system, digestive system, they're important for those systems. Excretion system, they're important for those systems within your body. Endocrine system, that's hormones, they're important. So we cannot overlook these. And what engineered food tends to do is focus on the 3 main food groups, the macronutrients, but they tend to lack in the micronutrients. This is the measure, this is the standard that we use for nutrition. This is the standard. So as we talked about, energy, like I said, now to put it down into things that you can understand and just execute for yourself, this is what you need to use. This is what it is. And this is where MyFitnessPal comes in handy, or any food tracking tools. This is where they come in handy, like microfact, lose it. This is where they come in handy. The first thing that you need to do is you need to set your goals. When you download an app, you need to understand, okay, am I trying to lose weight? Am I trying to gain muscle? Am I trying to maintain the current weight? You just need to pick a goal. And this will influence how much energy you need to eat in a day. So this is what you need to understand. And this will also help you understand, okay, so how many carbs do I need to eat in a day? How much protein do I need? How many fats do I need in a day? So all of these things are important for you to come up and understand how to track everything. And then, like I said, you can use a tool, a different tool, any tool that you need. So I prefer MyFitnessPal. That's the first tool that I've used, and I've just stuck with it because I understand it. I'm not going to try complicate my life because there's another new tool that's come out that's saying like, okay, we can track your food better. I just stick with what works because part of this is just sticking with the principles. Don't complicate your life trying to use this tool and that tool. Just find what works for you. Whatever gets you results, just stick with it and just keep going with it. Just move with it. It'll take a lot for me to switch to a different platform because now I have to start learning new things and new details. Maybe they make some updates and stuff. Just that time and focus and energy, which means that I have to spend maybe an hour or 2 hours learning that new tool. So when you're trying to understand nutrition to begin with, to understand the fundamentals, it's not worth your time to spend your time on that piece. It's more important to understand the fundamentals. Once you understand the fundamentals, just pick a tool. Just use that tool. It's not going to matter which tool comes in or another tool. Like it's not really going to matter at the end of the day. But find the tool that works for you, that you find that gives you the best results, and just stick with it. Personally, I've used MyFitnessPal. It's been over 15 years now using MyFitnessPal, and it's helped me. Like I'm on and off, but when I'm not using it, I still have an idea of what I'm eating because I've tracked for so long now that I can eyeball certain things. And the times that I stop paying attention, I tend to gain a bit more weight or just lose weight when I'm not paying attention. I don't actually achieve my goal because I'm not paying attention. I'm just kind of like all over the place. So it's important to pick a goal, then pick a tool that you want to use and stick with it. Step 4, you can calculate your daily caloric needs. Determine your total daily energy expenditure. This means your total daily energy expenditure also includes the functions of your body because even if, let's say, you don't have to do any work in a day, any physical activity where you're walking, anything that's like active, your body still uses energy for all the processes and all the systems, for breathing, for pumping your heart, for just regulating your temperature. Your body is using energy. So there's a level of energy that's always being used by your body every single day. So you need to find the actual amount of energy that your body uses. The total daily energy expenditure now also includes the activities that you do in a day, like whether you work out for 1 hour in a day, 2 hours in a day, whether you don't work out, whether you work a job that makes you work out by default, or you sit at a desk all day and you're using more of like your mental faculties, mental energy, and you're not using physical energy as much, you have to put that into account when you're figuring out your total daily energy expenditure, because this will help establish and estimate total daily energy expenditure. This will be an estimate to begin with, but you have to calibrate everything the first month. You have to calibrate everything. And your diet, you have to calibrate the diet. And then you need to determine your macro distribution depending on your goal. So if you want to look leaner, you adjust your macronutrients. If you want to look fuller, you adjust your macronutrients. So you can have the same amount of calories that you're eating in a day, but the macronutrient distribution will determine your body composition. So whether you look leaner, whether you look fuller, is determined by your macronutrient distribution. Because what you find is that, so your carbohydrates help you hold more water because the carbs, just the molecules of carbohydrates, they tend to bond with the H2O molecule more. That will determine the kind of look that you have. So the moment you increase your protein to be a little bit higher, you tend to reduce your carbs as well if you're going to keep the same calories, right? Because remember, 1 gram of protein is equal to 4 calories and 1 gram of carbs is also equal to 4 calories. They're equal. You can just adjust these two, and you can also maybe adjust your fats, but not too much because your fats are 9 calories. You're not going to be eating a ton of fats in terms of grams. So you want to adjust that, the percentage, based on your goal. And then, yeah, so again, when you're tracking, you want to be able to read labels, pay attention to the nutritional labels. Packaged food usually has nutrition labels with your calories, macronutrients, micronutrients. Most of the apps, they're using food databases. That is how you track your food. And that is what also allows it to be an easier process because these are databases with food. You want to pick whatever's closest to what you're tracking. So it's kind of like a database, a library with different foods. And you also want to log your homemade meals, break down the ingredients, and log them individually. I've got recipe guides that already has this broken down for you. And this is going to be the cheat code. That's something that I'll show you what you can do as well. It just takes a lot of this pressure off you. And you just plug and play, just take the recipe, cook it. You already know what it is. You can design your own meal plan. You already know what it is. That is the benefit. But this is just teaching you exactly what you need to do if you're to do this on your own and give you control because I believe in helping you gain control over your health. It's one thing for me to tell you, okay, do this and just give you the plan. And it's also another thing when you understand how and why you're supposed to eat that food or that amount of food. There is more power in that and there is more value in that because there's something in your brain that just clicks and you understand it. And I don't have to keep telling you, like, okay, go do this, go do that. But you can do it for yourself and you can teach someone else. You can teach your kids, you can teach your family, you can teach your friends, you can teach the people that you care about because you understand it. So again, consistency is everything. So you want to be consistent. You want to measure the portions. You want to use a food scale and measuring cups, whatever you're using, and track everything that you consume, even condiments, your beverages, and you want to be as accurate as possible. And when I show you how to use MyFitnessPal, it's just going to make sense, right? This is just to help give you the full picture of what we're going to cover with how to set up MyFitnessPal. This is the context. Again, you've got your protein, you've got your carbs, you've got your fats, and we can talk about the different foods that you can eat in another stream and what each food helps you with, right? And then you track your macronutrients and then you review, you adjust. This is the foundation for us. What we need to understand when we're talking about tracking your nutrition. Right now, we've covered a lot of important information, and tomorrow will come and I'll show you how to actually download MyFitnessPal if you don't have it on your phone already, and how to set up your profile in MyFitnessPal and to start tracking. And probably we can actually track our first meal tomorrow. I think take some time, try to understand everything that we've covered today. This is the foundation that you need so that anything else that we discuss moving forward makes sense. Because if you don't understand all of this stuff that we've talked about right now, everything else might not make as much sense, or you might have a tough time understanding what is going on. Because understanding the history, understanding the context of food, of energy, of nutrition, of calories, of everything is important. Because when you understand this, this gives you an easier time to really have a better relationship with food, to understand what God intended for us in the beginning and how we've changed a lot of things, how we've tried to progress but created new problems. So now the question is, how do I get back to what God intended? That is what we're trying to get back to, because we can talk about it from a place of how and what nature has always intended for us. Things are where they are. We can't go back and change certain things. And the question is, how can we solve the problems now based on where we are now? How do we evolve? How do we adapt? Because we're very resilient. We're very adaptable as humans, and we need to start taking control. And that is the key. That is the key thing that we need to understand. Everything, if you've taken anything from everything that I've shared with you, from all the other videos, fitness, training, working out, it's all about taking control. You take control. You have the power. You can take control. It's not up to science alone or scientists or institutions or anyone else, but this knowledge is available for everyone. I want you to take control of your health. I want you to take control of your life. You can do it. I'll see you tomorrow.